Alright everyone, I'm doing a challenge that I think is kinda neat and entertaining. Can I beat both The Last of Us 1 and The Last of Us Part 2 with only using fire and explosives? Now, the rules of this challenge are pretty simple. I can only use weapons that make fire and explosions. This also includes explosive and fire munitions. For an example, the bow and arrow has explosive arrows. This is also something that I can turn on in the cheats menu of Part 1, but not Part 2. Now, to make this a bit more difficult, I decided that in any given area where there are a limited number of enemies, I am to kill all of them. If I am in an area where they spawn infinitely, I proceed through the area as normal. I will be playing this on Survivor Plus with infinite ammo and crafting so that this challenge is actually attainable. Those are my rules, so let's get into it. So the first few encounters in the quarantine zone were very easy. This is expected because fire and explosives are very effective. I was actually enjoying myself so much that I started blowing up random shit to see the cool physics. We find a man trapped under rubble, and shockingly he doesn't explode, but this is because you're supposed to shoot him with your pistol and not an explosive arrow. But we continue on, killing more of Robert's men, and killing him ourselves. We meet up with Marlene before we kill some more Fedra soldiers, then meet up with Ellie, and then take a nap. Anyway, we wake up and get arrested, discover Ellie's immunity, and then book it out of town. But not before we terrorize some of the locals. We make it outside and burn and explode any and all infected in our way. We make it to the Capitol building, leave a very infected test behind, and destroy all the soldiers in the building. And outside of the building. Bill's town in the beginning is very simple and straightforward. There are only 4 infected that can be killed by our hand before a certain event. And there's 1 infected that sets off one of Bill's traps anyway, so that makes it a lot easier for me. However, what is not easy for me is Bill's trap that we get caught in. You're forced to use the revolver here, and there's no way around it. After that, we make it to Bill's safe house where we acquire a shotgun that I'll never use and continue to terrorize the local townspeople. We make it to the high school to try and find a battery, but we don't find it, so we have to fight our way through to get to the gym to fight a bloater. And this is probably the easiest part of the game for me because it's so overpowered to use bomb arrows. After that, we play Ring Around the Rosie with some infected for a bit because they spawn infinitely, and then we make it to the house to go on with the truck push. This time the truck push was really easy because I already had infinite ammo on. We leave Bill in a town filled with aggroed zombies and take Ellie to go across the country. Immediately upon arriving to Pittsburgh, we fail because of the guy trying to kill Ellie. He is unfazed when we throw anything at him, and we don't have access to our things right now. Continuing on to the bookstore, it was pretty easy because funnily enough the AI of the hunters is kinda dumb, even on Survivor. The hotel is a little tricky, but doable enough. We fall to our death and kill some stalkers and a bloater. We almost drown and Ellie fails the challenge. When facing the enemies in the financial district, it's not a good idea to face them all at once. So I snuck past the sniper and blew all of them up to oblivion. Ellie gets her gun and we make it to the turret truck. I did somehow die once to the turret truck, and I now realize I probably could have used a smoke bomb, but it gave me the checkpoint anyway, so I just continued on as normal. We meet up with Henry and Sam and make it to the sewers. Once I got to the stalker room, I decided to turn on enhanced listen mode so I can see where the rest of the enemies are. This doesn't count against me because it's just an extra setting. The last ambush room is timed, so I kill as many enemies as I can until I get out. I am able to blow up all of the raiders right before the sniper, however I am forced to not only shiv the sniper, but I am also forced to use his gun. This is unavoidable, so it's a fail. There's no more gameplay after this act, so now it's time to move on. We make it to Tommy's dam and get attacked by raiders. Nothing in this part is particularly interesting, other than the raiders that die mid-cutscene because of a cleverly placed bomb. So I'm gonna move on to the university. The runners by the generator are easy enough, and the dorms are slightly more difficult. But because clickers and the bloater are blind, I used this to my advantage and lured them into an adjacent room, and blew them up from there. Afterwards, more raiders die from some more cleverly placed bombs. The only thing I really had to do in this part was do a little bit of cleanup, because some of them didn't die to my clever bombs. When Joel falls and gets impaled, there are 2 raiders that come bursting through a door. I've tried placing a nail bomb there, but it despawns once you're in the cutscene, so you're forced to use your revolver here. However, because Joel is currently bleeding out, the rest of the chapter is just him walking to death's door. I used some explosive arrows on a seemingly immortal deer and meet David. For the small room, I used a bit of a strategy where I would kill the infected before they got into the room, because if I didn't, I would just blow up with them. I did this until all of the waves cleared and we were out of the room. I blew up the last remaining infected and obliterated the bloater in a matter of seconds. We make it back to the deer and find out that David's a creep, kill a few of his men, and then get kidnapped. Thankfully, after an eternity, Joel wakes up and goes to save her. During the sequence where Ellie is being hunted, you don't have anything that's explosive, so I just snuck my way out. And the same can be said for the David fight, however for David I have to actually stab him to progress, so this counts as a failure. Joel, on the other hand, has his explosives and makes his way to save Ellie. We've made it to Salt Lake City, so now it's natural that we have to kill some infected in a subway. We almost die again, but then are thankfully saved by the Fireflies, who naturally want to make her brain into a cure. Joel's having none of that though. So we successfully kill everyone in the building, including Jerry, save Ellie, and we finish the game with 5 total failures. During Abby's Jackson sections, she doesn't have anything that's explosive. Thus, because the game is forcing me out of it, I will not be counting this as a failure. The same, however, cannot be said for Ellie because she has Snipe a Runner. This is a QuickTime event, thus it counts. The rest of Jackson is decently doable because Ellie has her Molotovs and trap mines, and Abby's is just running. The first half of Ellie Day 1 is very straightforward. There's only a few infected at the Dome and Courthouse, and can be blown up very easily. Once Shimmer wins the challenge, we're forced to stab Jordan in a QuickTime event. The rest of Eastbrook Elementary is very straightforward to explode our way through. Once we get to the TV station, we use one very cleverly placed bomb, so that all the wolves don't die alone. The sewers don't offer much in terms of challenge, it's mostly just infected, and they are very easy to kill with explosives anyway. And the birthday flashback adds nothing other than story because there's no explosives, or encounters. In Ellie Day 2, we first off go to Hillcrest to blow up a couple of dogs and humans. I hunted down some infected that were hiding in the little town, and then I faced off against Boris the Stalker. I did also almost burn to death here because you can't use your bow inside the garage. So, that was fun. We get to the houses and do some more exploding of wolves and dogs. Once we meet up with Jesse, we begin to fail a lot. So much so that I'm just gonna count the whole driving section as one massive failure. And to add insult to injury, we have the Tommy Sniper section. The rest of the flashback can be done with Molotovs, including the bloater, because you can't kill it anyway. Continuing on, we doom some stalkers and an armored clicker. Then we have our first encounter with Scars. And like most other encounters in the game, it was pretty easy. Once we get to the big Seraphite brute in Ellie's Day 2, I used a bit of a speedrun strat. In the original strat, if you were to use one trap mine, it would knock him out of his animation and you could melee him. This is not what I did, however. I used 2 trap mines. That way he would die in one magnificent blow. And his friends I picked off from a distance. I made it to the hospital and managed to get rid of all of the wolves, including their dogs, and this is where I ran into the first of a lot of crashes. Every single time I would go through the door to continue on the game, it would crash. Continuously. Every single time I opened the door, it would crash. I tried everything to try and fix it, so much so that it took me 2 days of troubleshooting it. However, in the end, I had to restart the chapter, and even after that, it still crashed. So I restarted it again, and this time it worked. I have no idea why, but it did. And so I finally find Nora and chased her down. And to add insult to injury, you cannot kill her with any sort of explosive, you must beat her to death in a QuickTime event with a lead pipe. In Ellie Day 3, Jesse and I blow up some more wolves before he becomes disgusted with my actions and abandons me. I died only a little bit at the mall, but in the end it all worked out. I sniped the last few scars from afar on the really cool mid-air train thing. I don't know, it's really cool. And yet again, I obliterated the bloater in a matter of seconds. We make it to the aquarium where we kill both Mel and Alice with our knife. This counts because they are both QuickTime events. Now, Abby gets different equipment than Ellie, so now we get fire ammo for the shotgun and pipe bombs, but that's it. On our way to the fob, we encounter some infected, to which I burn very easily. We also encounter some scars on our way, but they're very easy to deal with as well. The gas station holdout has an infinite amount of enemies that spawn, so I hid behind the counter as per usual. We meet up with Isaac at the fob and find out that Owen has gone AWOL, so we're gonna go after him. We encounter more scars in Chinatown and at the Tilted Towers, so we dispose of them. That is, until we're knocked out so hard that we're thrown back into another useless flashback. We wake up and then we're saved by Yara and Lev. However, until the restaurant holdout, the forest is a massive failure because we don't have our equipment, and we're forced to use melee. We leave Yara and Lev in a trailer park and we move our way to the coast. We get up onto a cruise ship and demolish all the infected inside. We then have a very important talk with Owen. I do actually quite like this scene because the conversation they have is very important to their characters. But because I suck at explaining, I'm just gonna link a video in the description by TLOU Explained because they do a very good job analyzing the scene. Abby wakes up from a nightmare and goes to save the kids. However, Yara will die if her arm is still attached to her, so we have to go get some supplies to hack it off. We encounter a lot of scars on the way, but we make quick work with them with our fire and explosives. Abby then tries to conquer her fear of heights, but fails profusely. We make our way down the hotel building, killing all infected that stand in our way. I also found another both hilarious and annoying glitch. I was just gonna use one shot on the Rat King and Mini Rat King, however I decided to say the hell with it. It's not that hard, you just have to keep your distance and never stop running. Anyway, we made quick work of both of them, and we save Yara and finally move on from Jerry's death. On Abby Day 3, we find out the real reason that Yara and Lev ran away, and Lev was telling the truth. He shaved his head. But because Lev has mommy issues, he runs off to go and, quote-unquote, save her, so we have to go find him again. In the process, we rediscover Manny and Tommy. We fight some infected on the bridge before Tommy makes quick work of Manny, and then we make quick work of Tommy. We gain a boat and make it to the island. We fight our way through the logging camp and farmlands and find Lev. Not long after, Yara dies, which I'm still very upset about. I quite like Yara. We kill any and all enemies in our way to get off of the island. No one ever stops us. Damn it! Yeah, so you're forced to shoot your gun on the horse, but you don't actually have to kill anyone. We fight our way through the fires of Haven and are forced to kill another Seraphite brute. And to add even more insult to injury, Ellie killed our friends, so now we have to go kill hers. Then of course we have to fight Ellie, and this is a no-weapons scenario anyway, so it's just fisticuffs. Or rather, fist versus whole arsenal of weapons. So, Abby has to kill a few more infected in Santa Barbara, but then she gets kidnapped for the rest of the game. So Tommy guilt trips Ellie into going after Abby again, and of course, it works. So, off to Santa Barbara we go. We burn through, or rather explode through, all the infected in our way before we too get kidnapped. However, unlike Abby, Ellie escapes on her own. The tracks to the resort and the farmlands outside are no issue, the issue is when we get inside. There are a lot of enemies at the resort, and they're not even the full issue. The issue is that I'm using explosives, and because I'm using the explosives, the game gets bogged down by all the particles and body parts and kept crashing. I had to restart the chapter no less than 3 times, and keep in mind, this included going back through the tracks to the resort and the farmlands before I could even get another attempt at trying to get through the rest of the resort without it crashing. And unlike on E.Day 2, it kept crashing in different spots. Yes, it crashed in the same spot a couple of times, however, it kept crashing in other spots as well. This is something I've noticed a lot with the remaster, is that I'm personally finding a lot more bugs in it than in the original Part 2. And I can only imagine what it feels like to lose a whole game permadeath to a crash. Not even your fault, a game crash. Anyway, my rant over, we're forced to fight Abby, and this is a no-weapons scenario, and thus it counts. So, we make it back to the farm with a total of 16 failures for both games, and a separate total of 11 for part 2. Despite the crashes, this challenge was actually very fun. And if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, and if you want to see more challenges from me in The Last of Us, maybe subscribe. Turn on the notifications so you never miss a video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye!